Have you ever wondered what stops a massive billion-dollar company from just doing whatever it wants? Well, it's not just good faith. There's a strict set of rules they have to follow, a corporate playbook, if you will. And today, we're going to flip through that playbook to really understand how these companies are governed and how the SEC keeps them in line.
So let's get right into it. Who actually polices these giants? Is there a rule book, and who's the referee making sure they're all playing fair? That's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
Okay, first up, Section 1, the foundations of the game. Before we can get into the crazy plays and the penalties, we gotta understand the absolute basics, like how is the score even kept, and who are the key players on the field?
It really all starts with this one key term, outstanding capital stock. Now I know, it sounds super technical, but it's actually a pretty simple and incredibly powerful idea. It's just the total number of shares that are out there in the hands of stockholders. And this number, it's the foundation for literally every major vote and decision that gets made.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This whole idea of outstanding capital stock, you can think of it as the basis for corporate democracy. It literally determines who gets a voice in how the company is run, and, crucially, how much that voice counts. The more stock you have, the louder your voice. It's really that straightforward.
Now, the rulebook also sets up the rest of the playing field. For example, not every board is called a board of directors. Sometimes you'll see a board of regents. And here's a big one. To stop any single player from getting way too powerful, Congress can actually step in and put a cap on how much stock one person or entity can own. The whole idea here is to keep the game fair and to stop monopolies from forming.
So, you've got a rulebook, you've got players, but who enforces the rules? That brings us to Section 2. It's time to meet the corporate referee, the Securities and Exchange Commission, better known as the SEC. This is the official body that makes sure everyone is following that playbook.
The SEC has this incredible authority called visitorial power. It's a formal-sounding name, but what it means is they basically have an all-access pass. They have the legal right to walk into any corporation and look at their books, their records, their operations, anything they need to make sure it's all on the level.
But here's the crucial catch. What the SEC finds during these examinations is strictly confidential. This isn't some public shaming. Their findings are kept totally private, unless, of course, they're needed as evidence in a court case or if releasing the info is absolutely necessary to protect the public and investors.
And believe me, this referee has some serious power. The SEC can issue a cease and desist order to immediately halt illegal activities. They can hold people in contempt. In the most extreme cases of fraud, they can actually dissolve a corporation entirely. Poof, it's gone. And they're even protected from lower courts trying to get in their way. They absolutely mean business.
All right, let's move on to Section 3, the annual scorecard. This is probably the most common way that companies interact with the SEC, through all the reports they have to file every single year. You can think of it as them turning in their official scorecard. To keep this simple, all you have to remember is a little mnemonic, FGP. Companies have to file their financials, a general information sheet, and if they're a company that has a major public interest, they file special public interest reports. FGP. Easy, right?
Now, here's a key detail. The rules for those financial statements are different depending on the size of the company. We're looking at some regulations from the Philippines here, and the magic number is 600,000 pesos. If a company's assets are below that number, their financial report can be unaudited. But if they're at or above that line, nope, they need a full, proper audit by an independent CPA.
And this table here just lays it all out so clearly. You can see exactly who files what report and who has to sign off on it. The general info sheet, or GIS, that's on the corporate secretary. But the financials, well, that depends on that 600,000 peso threshold we just talked about. So, what happens if a company just doesn't file its scorecard? Well, if they miss the deadline to file their reports 3 times in any 5-year window, they get hit with what's called delinquent status. And trust me, that's a serious penalty. It puts the company on thin ice and can lead to way bigger problems down the road.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, penalties and disputes. What happens when fouls are called on the field? Or what if players on the same team just can't get along?
For those internal disagreements, especially in unlisted companies, the playbook often forces them into arbitration. It works like this. Say there's a dispute and one person tries to take it to court. If there's an arbitration agreement, the court must throw the case out and send it to an arbitrator. And whatever that arbitrator decides, well, that's final. But, and this is a really important but, arbitration is not a catch-all solution. It's specifically for those internal corporate squabbles. It absolutely does not apply to criminal behavior or to situations that involve the rights of people outside the company. The playbook is very clear about where those boundaries are.
Okay, that takes us to our final section, modernizing the rulebook. Because, let's face it, the game of business is constantly evolving, so the playbook, it has to adapt right along with it.
This timeline really shows that evolution in action. We've moved from an old corporation code to a much newer, updated one. The new rules replace the old ones, but it wasn't some sudden switch. And looking ahead, the new code actually mandates the SEC to build a fully modern electronic system for filing and monitoring. The future is digital.
And here's a really key point. This transition was designed to be practical. They didn't just drop the new rulebook on everyone overnight. Existing companies were given a full 2-year grace period to get everything in order. The goal wasn't to punish anyone. It was to give them time to adapt to the new game.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. The playbook has already evolved from paper to digital. But as business gets even more tangled up with technology, with AI, with global networks, what's next? How will the corporate rulebook have to change to keep the game fair for everyone involved? It's something to think about.